Hello, this is Gareth Keane, continuing the series of videos on programming and Visual Basic for applications in Excel. I'm continuing the sub-series here on arrays, and I'm going back here a bit. I'm looking at a program here which basically has the forenames and surnames for 5 different students, and it's going to basically, using an input box, it's going to ask the user to input a mark for each student. Now if you look at this example is kind of going back a bit. It's looking at how you'd actually have to program this if you didn't have arrays, and then what I'm going to do is program it with arrays to show how much more efficiently it can be done. If we didn't have arrays, we'd have to name the forename 1, forename 2, forename 3, forename 4 as separate individual variables. Same with the surnames, same with the marks. You can see they're named 1 to 5. Then I have an integer called class total and class average, because I'm going to work out the total of the 5 marks that are input by the user, and I'm going to work out the average then. You can see here that in this case I just assign the forenames and the last names with a simple assignment statements, the same surnames we saw before. New set of first names here. I initialize class total equal to 0, and then we have, I might as well step through it. Then we come through here, F8 like so. Forename is John, surname is Lynch. Forename 1 is John, surname 1 is Lynch. Forename 2 is Kevin, surname 2 is Murphy. Forename 3 is Kieran, surname 3 is Smith, and so on. I initialize class total to 0, and then I enter the mark for the first person. So it says enter the mark for forename 1 and surname 1. Sorry, I set up a prompt, as a string, and this prompt I'm going to pass into an input box. An input box will give me back a text, so I have to convert that from a string into an integer, and I use the cstring function to do that. You can see it pops up here, enter the mark for John Lynch. I'll just go to a blank sheet here. No, it doesn't matter. Enter the mark for John Lynch, 45, okay. I have that 45, and I'm going to add it on to the running total, the class total. Then I do the same operation again. I have a prompt, enter the mark for forename 2 and surname 2. Then I use that prompt to put a prompt up in the input box. The user, myself, will put a number in there. The number will be read in as text. It has to be converted to a string, the cstring. It's from a string to a number using the cstring function, and it's assigned into the mark 2 then. So I'll enter a new mark here, 67, okay, and that gets put into mark 2. It then gets added on to the class total. So if I say print mark 1, mark 2, mark 3, mark 4, mark 5, and class total. You can see I've read in 2 so far, 45 and 67, and I haven't added it on to class total yet, so I'll do that now, F8. And now if I execute this statement, you can see the 2 values have been added up onto class total. Then I do the same for the third student, enter the mark for forename 3 and surname 3, and it comes up, so I enter any arbitrary mark there, and I add that onto the class total. So you can see the third mark is read in now, it gets put on and added on here. So 45 plus 67 plus 56 adds up to 168. We now do the same thing for the fourth student, 78, F8. I'm just making these marks up. You can see now I've entered 4 marks and it adds up to 246. And now I'm on the fifth student, and F8. And if I come here, you can see all 5 marks have been entered, mark 1, mark 2, mark 3, mark 4, mark 5, and the class total, and then I just divide that by 5 to give me the class average, which our output is, the class average is 53.8. So you can see with that, because I haven't used arrays, there's a lot of code in there, a lot of code that's repeated. You can see the pattern here, and I can use that pattern to kind of say, well, what way would I code this up? So what I'm going to do is take this code here, and I'm going to take the whole lot of it. I'm going to copy it, Control C, or I can go up to Edit Copy, and I'm going to insert a module. though, and that I'm going to paste it in. And I'm just going to show you how I'm going to redo this as using arrays to simplify it down. So we say dimension forename 1 to 5. I could just put in 5 as well if I wanted. The only thing is they're actually numbered from 0, so it would create an extra element. So it wouldn't really matter either way. And marks are mark 1, 2, 5, like that. So instead of having 15 separate variables, I now have 3 arrays. And they're known as parallel arrays because the first element in forename corresponds to the first element in surname, which corresponds to the first element in mark. So John Lynch and the mark I put in for them are all related. Class total we leave as it is, prompt I leave as it is, and now what I'm going to do is put these in as subscripts. So instead of having individual variables, I just put brackets around the 1, brackets around the 2, brackets around the 3, and the 4, and the 5. So now instead of being individual arrays, I've populated in individual variables. I have now populated 2 arrays, and by populate you just mean fill them up, populations into them. So the first array are the forenames of these people, the second array are the corresponding or parallel array with the surnames for the same people. Then as I come through here, I have the loop here, class total is equal to 0, that's fine. What I can do here is just take this code here for I is equal to 1 to 5. I'm going to indent this by putting 2 spaces there in front of each one, and I say next I here. Now you can see all this code down below here. The 4 sets, that's for the second one, second person. Previously I deleted. For the third person I can delete it, for the fourth person I can delete it, and for the fifth person I can delete it, because the loop's going to handle all those people now. And then the only change I have to make here is put the brackets around here, because now I'm referring to the first element of that array and the first element of that array, but I don't leave it as 1. I have my loop variable, I put in I instead. Also down here, instead of mark, I basically have mark I here, and this is mark I. So instead of putting in specific values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as we loop through it, I takes the value 1, so it's going to say enter the mark for forename 1 and surname 1, which is John Lynch. That's the prompt that's going to come up in the inbox. I'll enter a mark, and that mark gets put into mark 1, which then gets added onto the class total. So you can see here I've shortened this code. Imagine you're doing it for 100 students. You can see straight away that this code will work for 100 students just as easily as it will work for 5 students. If I then go through it like so, F8 doesn't like something there. I forgot to dimension the loop variable. So dimension I as an integer. Okay, it reads in the 5 names, forenames and surnames. And then it's going through the loop. So enter the mark for forename I and surname I. So that's forename 1 and surname 1, because I is equal to 1. That's just a prompt. It's probably filling up a string there, but that string now will appear on the input box when I execute this. So enter the mark for John Lynch, okay. That gets added onto the class total. So now what I'll do is I'll just do I down here, mark I, and I'll have the class total. So I've gone through that once so far. So I've gone through it once. The mark here that I put in was 45, so the class total is 45. Then I come through here, enter the mark for forename 2. I now has the value 2, so it'll be Kevin Murphy. You can see enter the mark for Kevin Murphy. I'll enter 55 because I entered 45 the last time. So I say OK, add that to the class total. And you can see now that first time through was 45, now I've added 55, so our class total is 55 plus 45 giving me 100. Now it's coming through, I has the value 3, so it'll ask me about Kieran Smith. Enter the mark for Kieran Smith, so I'll do 50. Okay, add it to the class total, and then I press enter. So the third, it's gone through the third student, I is 3, the mark is 50, so it adds up to 3 marks, add up to 150. I'll do it again for the fourth one, I is equal to 4 now, so it should ask me about Jane O'Connor. 75, add that to class total. Let's look down here. So you can see, yes, it's added 75 onto 150. And the last one I'll do is the mark for Sarah Pilkington, 25. And you can see here, if I print it out, oh, it's gone. I can't do it. Once I come out of the loop, it won't print it out because I doesn't have a value anymore. But you can assume it added on that 25, so we should be looking at a total of 250. And the class average then is 5 into 250, should give us 50. Yeah, the class average is 50, okay. So you can see that's a way in which I adapted a long-winded program which didn't use arrays, can be shortened down into a few lines of code rather than repeating the same sort of code using individual variables. Okay, thank you very much for listening.